Hi, I'm Angie Hilton and welcome to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs. As business owners, major challenges are inevitable. So how do we steel ourselves to weather the storms? Here, you'll find real-life stories of resilience, as well as tips from thought leaders and mental health experts on how to become unbreakable entrepreneurs. Jem Fuller is a local thought leader whose passion and drive is simply to make lives easier. Author of the book The Art of Conversation for Thoughtful Men, Jem has lived a rich and colourful life, having worked in many and varied fields, from being a tattoo artist and fire dancer to a kinder teacher, third world volunteer and senior corporate leader. Today, Jem openly shares how vulnerability has been his strength, along with practical tips for helping business leaders become more conscious. Jem Fuller, what a delight to have you as a guest on Unbreakable Entrepreneurs. Thank you for making the time for us.
Yeah, easy. It's really nice to see you again, Angie.
What have you been up to lately? And can you fill in, for those who don't know you, what you do for a living? I mean, I know you do so many different things, but give us an overview.
Yeah, sure. Look, I've been running my own coaching facilitation practice for 8.5 years now. And primarily the bread and butter work is working with leaders, helping them as leaders becoming more conscious and more effective, and also building healthier workplace cultures. So that's the kind of bread and butter stuff. But along with that, prior to COVID, I've been running leadership retreats in the Himalaya in remote northwest India, and in Bali, and in the Kimberley region up in northwest Australia. COVID obviously put a stop to that. Although it looks like we might be able to venture out again next year with those retreats. And then through the last 18 months, a lot of the work has been around resilience, because it's certainly an item that has made its way onto the board tables, and decision makers have been really forced to look at what people like you and I have been banging on about for years, which is people's well-being and mental health. But now organisations are really forced to look at that. So there's been a lot of work around that and developing an online resilience course. And then also in the middle of that and juggling teenagers and all the joys of homeschooling over the last year and a half, I've written a book and just recently recorded a TED Talk. So there you go, in a nutshell.
My goodness. Wow. Well, we'll dive a little deeper into all of those avenues soon. On a whole, for your business through COVID, has it been affected much, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah, look, it certainly was. Prior to COVID, all of my work was face to face, and so when the whole thing kind of hit and the brakes were completely put on and all the work stopped, and we all scrambled around, and I scrambled around as well, and got JobKeeper sorted. And once JobKeeper was sorted, I took a little bit of a breath and went, okay, so I can still feed the kids. And I'll just ride this out. And I remember sitting on the couch in June last year, and I remember catching myself thinking, I'll just ride this out and then I'll get back into it and everything will be okay. And I caught myself and went, Jem, that thinking is not going to fly. You need to pivot. Like, that word got overused, but it was true. And I said to myself, Jem, you need to find a way to be relevant now. You need to find a way to keep helping people, because I'm passionately driven to help people. And keep doing what you do. And so in that moment, I turned it around in my head and I started looking for ways to still provide service. And I've doubled my business in the last financial year. So what I'd previously done, my best year previous, I literally doubled it. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to do that. And I know it's not possible for everybody. But yeah, I've had one of the win stories.
That is incredible, and so uplifting to hear these positive stories for many of us. So what were the things that you implemented to change and make that growth?
Well, the first and foremost was to change my mindset. And it was to focus on what is possible. What are the things that I can do? It's so easy when we're forced into restriction, very literally forced into restriction, to be focusing on all the things I can't do anymore. And so really just to shift your thinking and going, hang on, I know all these things I can't do, but I'm now going to dedicate my mental capacity, my creativity and my thinking around what is possible, and what have I never thought of before that might be possible now. So taking it online obviously was a thing for me. And at the start, I didn't really know. I was, a part of my work is keynote speaking, and all of the keynote gigs were just cancelled and done and gone. And then thinking, just will anyone really want me to do a keynote to Zoom? And before you knew it, I was running workshops on how to run Zoom workshops, and I was only a few weeks more experienced than anybody else at running Zoom workshops. So you kind of just keep taking steps into the unknown and keep looking for how can I add value? How can I provide my service to the people who need what I do in other ways?
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's amazing. Now, conscious leaders, that's your main, would you say your main focus at the moment? How would you?
Yeah, communication is massive for me at the moment. And that's the book as well, The Art of Conscious Communication for Thoughtful Men. This first book has ended up being specifically for men, but it's broadly applicable for everybody. So conscious communication, conscious leadership, that's something that I'm pretty passionate about.
What makes a great leader? What makes a great communicator in your books in a nutshell?
Yeah, wow. Look, I think a great leader is an authentic leader. There are as many different versions of a functional leader as there are people, and I don't think that anybody who's in a role of leadership, which is essentially all of us, we all need to step up and lead at some point in time. I think if you're trying to be someone else, you're probably not going to land. It's really about self-awareness, self-discovery, self-acceptance, to be able to then get out of the way and not make it about you. Yeah. So the more okay you are with who you are and your talents and your gifts and your mission and your purpose and how you want to serve, the more okay you are with yourself, the less you need to make it about you, and you can make it about everybody else, which really is essentially the role of a leader. I believe is a role of service. It's about serving the greater good.
Incredible. For you personally, to get to this state of understanding communication and leadership, you've obviously gone through some tough stuff yourself. Are you happy to share, the challenging times that led you to wanting to help people so much?
Yeah, wow, where to begin? I've packed a lot into my 50 years, and I have had a very colourful life and around the world, and that's included the kind of experiences that we all experience, grief and death and loss and broken hearts and dreams that never came true, and all the normal kind of human stuff. I have been lucky enough to have worked in so many different ways, from tattooist to fire dancer to kindergarten teacher to volunteer in the third world to senior leader in a corporate, labourer. I've done so many different things, and I have lived in lots of different countries around the world. So I've created a life that's very rich with experience of cross-cultural connection, I think. And I've always been, I look back now and think, why was I so passionate to go to the far-reaching corners of countries very different to ours? And it was about connection. I really wanted to connect with people who were very different to me and find the commonalities. And I think now, Angie, more than ever before, and this is something I'm really passionate about, as I'm watching, this crazy world at the moment with identity politics and cancel culture and public shaming, and these people are shouting at each other across the digital divides of difference, I call it. So people are identifying with a particular cause and they're just shouting at their enemies, and that's not helping. That's not actually helping. We need to find ways we need to remember how to communicate with each other, because it's only through communication that we can harness the power of diversity. We should be celebrating the diversity, that you see things differently to I do, because then when we come together and communicate effectively, that's when we can solve the biggest problems, right? So I'm watching the world at the moment, and it's kind of a crazy place, and so I really do believe that we need to remember how to communicate.
If you had the world's attention for 10 minutes, what would you say on these topics to try to get people communicating better?
I would, if I had the world's attention for 10 minutes, I would ask everybody to take a breath, to loosen your grip on the way you think things should be, right? To just loosen your grip, open your mind, be open to the possibility that there might be other ways to see things, or to come together and work things out. And to just consider others, just to be more considerate. I think people, and it's interesting, not everybody, it's the loudest people that I'm talking about, the ones that are on there shouting and ranting and raving. Most people are generally considerate and lovely, I find. But the ones that are the noisiest and making the most noise on the social media platforms, if I could encourage them to just take a breath, open your mind, be a bit more considerate, and not to necessarily let go of what you're passionate about, but to consider that your cause, your mission, you may be more effective if you just became a little bit more easy with your communication.
What sort of things do you do on a daily basis that, if people haven't looked into the sort of study that you have, what sort of things, tools that you could share that you do on a daily basis to kind of protect your mind and your emotions and make your, going through these troubling times a little bit easier?
Most definitely the most effective tool for me, which has become habitual, it's become a part of my life, is integrated and dedicated mindfulness. So I start most days with 20 minutes of meditation, either guided meditation or just free meditation. And the form of meditation that works for me is mindfulness meditation. So it's quite simply an attention to the present moment. Contrary to what a lot of people might believe, meditation's not about having a clear mind with no thoughts. I can't do that. I don't know anyone who can. It's really more just about allowing the thoughts to bubble along and just noticing what you can notice in the present moment. So I have a dedicated practice of about 20 minutes each morning, and then an integrated practice of mindfulness throughout the day. So I've created little trigger points throughout the day where I'll stop, pause, become mindful in that moment, and then continue on. And they've become really like little recalibration moments through the day. So we get caught up in what we're doing. And if you imagine our frequency or our energy can become quite frenetic, to pause regularly throughout the day and take a breath and just come back to your place of equanimity, just come back to your calm centeredness and then continue on. And I've found that so helpful. In times of adversity, like what we've all been through, it can really become overwhelming. And if we don't take moments to stop and pause and recalibrate, then we can get, carried away with that.
Great. So your focus at the moment being more so on men, and I guess we're all becoming more conscious in general, but maybe there's still a lot of men out there that aren't comfortable talking about their emotions or seeking help if they're having mental health challenges. What are some of the key points that you try to get across to men in terms of opening up?
Yeah, look, you're right. Just before talking about those key points, just talking about one of the challenges to helping men is that culturally men don't go for help. And, whenever I run a public workshop, if I'm running an open public personal development workshop over the years, it's always 90% at least of the people who come are female. So men, it's just not culturally in the male thinking to go and do personal development work. So this book that I've written, and it was actually a book writing mentor of mine, Susan Pearce, who suggested that I make this first book in the series for men, because there's going to be a series of the art of conscious communication. And she said, I think this first one would be good for men. And so I've written it for men, but I'm kind of thinking it's probably going to be more women who pick it up off the bookshelf and read it and give it to their partners and say, you need to read this, right?
Yeah.
So the first challenge is changing the stigma around vulnerability for males. And vulnerability was seen as a weakness, and understandably coming out of world events like World War II or, the Great Depression or things like this, where it was culturally the men had to have a stiff upper lip and, be strong and survive. And it's different times now. And I think there's really a lot of space for men to do some inward reflection, and really think about how do they identify as a man today, and where has that come from? What have they been taught? When they look in the mirror, who are they comparing themselves to? And to really come back into this self-acceptance place. And men, do you know what? Newsflash, men have got access to all the range of emotions. You know, it's that culturally and stereotypically, we've been told not to do that. You know, the number of us that grew up being told, don't cry like a girl. I mean, that's crazy. Can you imagine that was just normal to say that to your son? Both of my teenage boys cry when they're emotional, when they feel like it, you know, and I think it's a healthy thing to do. So yeah, accessing emotions. And in the book, I've actually got some processes and some ways to do that. Mm-hmm. And also I think that we can upgrade the quality of our communication as men with men, rather than being complicit. You know, if we're standing there with a bunch of mates and someone says an inappropriate comment that's either sexist or misogynist or something, rather than just kind of feeling awkward and not saying anything, that we can have the courage to say, hey mate, that's not okay. Mm. You know, that we can raise the bar.
Mm. Yep. So for you, if you put yourself in the shoes of some of these men that may have gone through some really challenging stuff with their businesses, and maybe they're not seeking help, and you've been through these feelings yourself in the past, when you were in that state, what were the main things that you did to pull yourself out?
Yeah, look, I think, and there's a chapter in the book about this called You Don't Need to Be an Island. We tend to keep it to ourselves because we think that every other bloke is okay. And so if we're struggling, we tend to keep it to ourselves. And when we keep our struggles to ourselves, and you're right, I've had some proper struggles. When we keep it to ourselves, it's hard to activate any kind of healing or movement from that place of being stuck. And I've found that when we have the courage to just talk to somebody, anybody, about our struggles, then it starts to open up the flow of energy to kind of move into someplace else.
That was always my experience too, when I would start to talk about the depths of what I was either in or had been through. It almost like the other person would take a breath and go, I can finally be honest, I can be real. So it is that vulnerability, sort of empowering each other when we have these conversations, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. You know, I remember before I started my own business and I was working as an employee and in a reasonably senior leadership role, had 150 staff and etc. And I thought that I always had to be on top of my game. I thought it was my job as the leader to always be everything's okay. We've got this. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be great. And I had this, you know, the 360-degree feedback survey thing that they do. I had 150 staff give me feedback anonymously. And luckily I had a psychologist with me to unpack the report, because if I didn't, I might have been really freaked out by it.
That's pretty frightening, actually, that stuff, isn't it? Crash yourself.
Yeah. And there was a theme in the feedback of people saying that they didn't trust me. And that was mortifying to me. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean you don't trust me? I would never hurt you. I'm a really nice guy. Like, what do you mean? So I didn't understand that. And the psychologist helped me to understand what they were saying was that they didn't trust this persona that was Jem, because I was always on top of the game. I had this facade that everything was always okay. I hid my vulnerabilities from them. And because they're human, they couldn't connect. They couldn't trust this facade. And what I realized from that was that actually allowing our vulnerability and being okay with that actually allows, like you just said, it actually allows others to connect with us more authentically, to trust us and go, wow, you're human too. You know, you have struggles too. You have anxieties as well. You lose sleep also. You know, so I really believe that vulnerability is a strength. And, you know, it's tricky as a leader because there's an appropriate balance. You know, you obviously, the people that you're leading need to feel safe that you're going to guide the ship through the storm. But at the same time, there needs to be enough vulnerability for them to connect with you.
So how did you start to break down those walls with the staff after that feedback?
Um, it was also at the same time that I was exploring the power of language, and so I was aware that the words that we choose to use have something to do with manifesting our reality. So I was being very careful of the words that I would use, and when people said, "How are you?" I used to always say, "I'm great," because I wanted to say the words "great," because that's what I was trying to manifest. But then I found that that was inauthentic. If there was a day when I wasn't feeling great, to say that wasn't authentic. But I didn't want to say I'm bad or I'm terrible, or use the word problems or worries, because I didn't want to use that language. So I started saying, on the days when I wasn't great, I started saying that. If someone said, "Hi, how are you?" I'd say, "Not great. Actually, really not great today. I'm struggling." So I just started being honest about where I was at, but still choosing my words carefully.
What response would you get when people would hear that? Because they're expecting Jem to be the man who's on top of his game. So that would have been pretty confronting to them.
Yeah, look, that time in my life, it was kind of too late for me to rescue and re-identify in that context. I lost my job. I sabotaged. I got to a point in my life. This was just leading up to my midlife crisis / awakening in my early 40s, and I had a midlife crisis, and sabotaged, lost my job, lost my sense of identity, didn't really know what was going on, but knew that I wanted to start my own coaching practice. So jumped in the deep end and took the small handshake from the previous employer and spent that on becoming qualified in the stuff that I do now, and started my own business with nothing, and was building a house at the time with my then wife and kids. So I was very heavily financially committed, and everyone around me thought I was crazy and said, "Jem, what are you doing? Go and get another job. You're building a house." And I said, "No, this is the time. I'm starting my own practice." So I ended up I built the house and then ended up having to sell it. Had to got out of the marriage. I couldn't rescue that. So I had this midlife crisis and everything changed. But I went to work primarily on myself first. And that was around convincing myself that I am enough, just the way I am. Because prior to that, I'd been running a very common racket. A lot of humans run this racket of, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, not fast enough, not good looking enough, not this enough or that enough. And I'd been successfully running that racket unbeknownst to myself. And then I figured out what had been going on. So I just went to work on myself. This was 9 years ago. Had the midlife awakening, changed my self-belief, started my own business, and then gradually everything started to change. And it's taken me this long, really, and so I'm going to be open about this, I don't mind, but it's taken me this long to get out of debt. It's taken me this long to start creating abundance. It's taken me this long to get a business where I'm full, my books are full. It didn't happen overnight. There's no such thing as overnight success, but a lot of determination and self-belief and persistence and belief that what I was doing was good for people, and that I'm reasonably good at it, and I was actually making a difference.
That's really amazing. And I love your term midlife awakening, not midlife crisis. It's a bit like the same thing I use about breakdown, breakthrough, isn't it? It's those toughest parts of our lives are often the things that are going to shape us the most. And I feel there'll be a lot of people out there through COVID and with businesses that might feel like for the first time they're in that space that you were talking about. But would you kind of say in some ways it's a time to be excited about your future, because it's your old self saying, I can't be this way anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is crisis becoming an opportunity. And, the idea that, our ego, our sense of identity would have us believe that an identity crisis is akin to real death. The fear of an ego death to the ego is very real, and it's scary. But I've been through identity crisis twice in my life, once in my 20s and once in my early 40s. And I know now it's actually an opportunity. You get to rewrite your relationship with self. You get to make up who you choose to be. What sort of a person do you choose to be? And by kind of upgrading the software, so to speak, you really start to run different programs, you know. And I would encourage people, if you're in a time of your life where the way things were are not possible anymore, you know, and you're not sure what you can do moving forward, start by reflecting upon, who do I choose to be? What sort of a person do I choose to be as a person? How do I want to show up? And you'll be surprised how things unfold in front of you. It takes courage, but it works.
I get the sense that underneath all this, and it's probably not spoken about much in the business world, that you are quite a spiritual person, Jem. Would you share that side of yourself?
Yeah, sure. I like to think of my spirituality as a very practical spirituality. So it's what works, you know, what aspects or beliefs work for me in terms of enhancing my experience of existence, you know, to make a better life or to make an easier life, what ways of looking at things. And for me, spirituality is anything that we can't scientifically prove, but we experience, you know. And spirituality for me is that which is beyond ego. So ego or identity is about itself and about separation. So my ego sees you, Angie, and sees you as being separate. You're you and I'm me, and we're not the same thing. Whereas the spiritual aspect of experience is that feeling that we get where we go, actually, we're all in this together. And when you think about it, we very literally are all in this together. We are all of the same stuff, you know, and there is a human spirit, you know. And from my experience, most people, save for a few exceptions, most people are lovely. Most people are kind and want to look out for each other. It's just that through fear, we kind of shut down from that. So I do, you know, I do live like that. And if that's a spiritual existence, then yeah, I'm spiritual, you know, but I'm not kind of a faith believer. I'm not religious. Having grown up in a Christian family, I'm not religious. I don't think I'm atheist either. But yeah, it's a practical spirituality. If it works for me and it's good for me and good for those around me, then I'll take it on.
I love it. Well, it seems like it's working for you, whatever it is that's going on there. Now you've got a beautiful family down the coast, and
Yep.
teenagers. Did you say?
I've got a 17-year-old boy and a 15-year-old boy, and my partner has a 14-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy.
Right, so you're in the thick of teenage years, which I'm sort of creeping into with mine. Any tips for teenagers and how to control them?
Oh, wow. Yeah, good luck trying to control them. Yeah, they're very different. My 17-year-old doesn't need any controlling. I don't need to worry about him. He's beautiful and self-motivated, and he's just about to finish year 11. He's naturally introvert, so homeschooling for him was a breeze. My 15-year-old boy, naturally extrovert, homeschooling for him was tough. And yeah, lots of struggles for him over the last year and a half. I won't go into because that's his story to tell, but it's been a really tough year and a half for him. And so therefore, for me as a dad, you know, it's hard watching your kids struggle, and there's only so much you can do. So that's been tough. But yeah, look, teenagers, wow, they're going to, you know, all you can do really is do your best to keep the communication open. I think that's something, well, I know that's something that I've managed to do reasonably well with my boys, is that they feel like they can tell me anything, you know. And we talk about everything. I know exactly what's going on for them. I'm sure they'll have their secrets necessarily they need to keep from me. That's cool. I get that. But anything that they're struggling with or experimenting with or figuring out, they're telling me about, which isn't always easy because there's some things I kind of wish I didn't know. But I'd rather have sorry.
Too much information.
Too much information. But I'd rather have a relationship with them where they feel safe to come and talk to me about what they're going through. So yeah, look, I guess my tip would be for teenagers, try and keep the lines of communication open. But also there's those years where you get the one word grunting answers, hi, how was your day? What did you get up to?
Feed me and wash my clothes.
Yeah, that's right. Oh no, they wash their own clothes.
Oh, that's good. Yours
That
are
bit's
well
working,
trained.
yeah.
Come to my house and help with mine. And Jem, do you do coaching for parenting?
No, but I am thinking of writing a book, The Art of Conscious Communication for Parents.
Great.
So.
Mine might have grown out of it by then. Oh no, you're a quick writer. I'm sure you're going to churn out how many books within the next couple of years?
At least a book a year, I'm hoping to do.
That's amazing. You are such a goer. Now, for people to know where to find you and what services you have, because I'm sure there's lots of businesses that would like to get you out to chat to them now that we can sort of be a little more face-to-face. Can you tell us about what you have on offer?
Yeah, sure. You can check out everything I do at gemfuller.com. So that's Gem with a J, JEMFULLER.com, and everything's on there. But in a nutshell, like I said at the top of the conversation, I work with leaders to create healthy workplace cultures. And that looks like one-to-one coaching with the leader, and then one-to-many facilitation, so running workshops essentially for the broader groups within the organisations. Clients for me span across government, not-for-profit, and private sectors, and all sizes. So I'm currently working with larger government departments and lots of people, and not-for-profit organisations with lots of people, right down to smaller organisations. I was just out with one of my clients this morning, Bray Restaurant out in Birregurra, and they've got a smaller team of people, and we have them all in the room running those workshops together. So that's the bread and butter stuff. There's online courses of mine that you'll find through the website as well. There's the book. The book's getting launched tomorrow. I'm doing a unashamed plug for the book that's coming out tomorrow. And yeah.
And where can people find it once it's been launched?
You just go onto my website and click on the tab that says books, and you can even pre-order a copy now if you want, and it'll get posted to you. I just found out today that the publisher is sending it off to the distributors. It's going to bookshops. I'm not sure which bookshops it's going to be in yet. It's on amazon.com.au as Kindle already.
Great. Are you doing an audio book for us non-readers with little attention spans?
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth. I'm actually looking for a recording studio in Geelong. So if any of you out there run a recording studio or know a good recording studio in Geelong, I'm looking to record the audio book in the next month.
Great. I'm sure you'll have lots of people putting their hands up. I'm thinking of one already. I'll tell you offline. That's wonderful. So gemfuller.com.au? No,
just gemfuller.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much
and
for your time.
I was just going to say, Angie, to the last little, if someone wants to see me in action, if you go to YouTube and just type into YouTube, Gem Fuller TEDx,
yes,
you'll see the TEDx talk. And just a little plug for the guys down at Milk, friends of yours actually, Robot Army, and they've got their other company, Milk. They did all the filming for it. And Platform Arts, thank you, Tammy, for letting us use your space in Platform Arts. That was really cool as well.
Brilliant. Everyone needs to check that out. How do you get on to do a TED Talk? Did someone ask you to do it, or do you put your hand up?
Yeah, my publisher organised it for me. And it was actually, funnily enough, it was with a TEDx studio in Derry, Londonderry in Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Oh, you do that very well.
I like the Irish accent, yeah. Don't mind it.
You look a bit Irish. I sound a bit Indian.
So, and look, if it wasn't for COVID, I would have flown over and done it with an audience in their studio as they normally do. But because of the restrictions, I had to make it happen myself. And so I decided to do it properly. I got Brad down at White Signs to make up the big proper signs. We, like I just said, we rented out the theatre and got a film crew. And so we just did it ourselves. But I wanted to be true to the TED brand and, make it look as professional as possible. So we did that.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure everyone's going to jump online now and check that out. So much wisdom to offer, Gem Fuller. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll hopefully see you down at a chamber gathering very soon.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Excellent. Thanks, Gem. Bye.
You're welcome.
I'm not really saying goodbye. I'm just faking goodbye. Thank you. That was brilliant. I'm Angie Hilton, and thanks for listening to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs podcast. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and head to geelongchamber.com.au for more wellbeing tips. This has been brought to you by the Geelong Chamber of Commerce and the Partners in Wellbeing program.